Along with the around 300 Lakota people who died on December 29, 1890, about 64 American soldiers were also killed or injured, most of their casualties caused by friendly fire. The Wounded Knee Massacre was one of the most tragic events during the American Indian Wars. It shocked the American people, finally making them realize the atrocities of the wars. Most history books and classes skim over this massacre, preferring to talk about it generally. The American Indian Wars are not something we can afford to gloss over in modern society. Instead, we must examine them closely to understand what caused the tension and bloodshed between the Native Americans and the United States. It escalated for decades, allowing the American government to oppress the Native tribes, forcing them off their homelands in the quest for power and capital. The Wounded Knee Massacre was one of the last great tragedies of the American Indian Wars. By looking closely, we will better understand the victims and how we can repair relations between the United States and the Native Americans today. Who was involved in the Wounded Knee Massacre? Although many people have assumed the Sioux group was involved in the massacre, the primary victims were actually the Lakota people. The Sioux was not a separate tribe. Instead, they were a group of tribes in the Great Plains. The Lakota was one of the three main subgroups included in the Sioux. Like other Native American tribes, the Lakota attacked American settlers who trespassed on their lands, and they participated in the American Indian Wars like the First Sioux War, 1854 to 1856, and the Dakota War, 1862. This tribe was not a stranger to warfare or the dangers of the American colonists. However, the United States government put increasing pressure on the Native American tribes, eventually forcing them onto reservations, where the indigenous people had to depend on government provisions. The government attempted to force the Lakota to adopt farming by reducing their rations, even though the reservation land was unsuited for subsistence farming. Many people were resigned to their new lives, but they took some consolation in the new spiritual movement spreading across the reservations, the Ghost Dance. It combined aspects of their traditional religion with Christianity and provided a distraction from their worsening living conditions. The leader of the Lakota during the Wounded Knee Massacre was Spotted Elk. His half-brother was Sitting Bull. Spotted Elk was courageous, but he also valued peace. At first, he worked to move his tribe toward the white man's way, but their situations worsened. When Sitting Bull died, his people combined with Spotted Elk's group. Spotted Elk decided to move his new group to the Pine Ridge Reservation. They met the United States Army on the way and never reached their new home. The American forces that stopped the Lakota tribe that fateful night were led by Colonel James W. Forsyth, an average man from a typical family who attended West Point Academy from 1851 to 1856. He served at several locations before joining the Civil War as a Union soldier. Despite not having a natural talent for military tactics, he became a colonel when he joined the 64th Ohio Infantry. Most of his jobs handled discipline and communication, not battle strategy, but his skills leaned toward those jobs. After the Civil War, Colonel Forsyth joined the American Indian Wars. This time, he had a more active role as the commanding officer of the 7th U.S. Cavalry. His actions that night directly led to the Wounded Knee Massacre. But although he received criticism from some people, the American Army praised him for his bravery. Colonel Forsyth continued to serve in the United States Army, rising to Brigadier General in 1894 and Major General in 1897. His central claim to notoriety continues to be the Wounded Knee Massacre. He died in 1906 with a lifelong military career, leaving behind a debate about what happened to the Lakota people and how such tragedies could be prevented in the future. What happened at the Wounded Knee Massacre? Due to its highly controversial nature, there are several versions of what happened at the Wounded Knee Massacre. However, there are a few points of agreement. It's generally accepted that Spotted Elk and his group of Lakota people began their journey to the Pine Ridge Reservation on December 23, 1890. Chief Red Cloud, the leader of the Native American group in that area, had invited him. About 20 miles from the reservation, the Lakota people were forced to stop at Wounded Knee Creek. Colonel Forsyth soon joined the group. At this point, there were about 500 American soldiers and 350 Lakota people, 230 of them being women and children. Colonel Forsyth conversed with the Lakota the following day, and tensions rose. In the middle of the argument, one of the Lakota's medicine men, Yellowbird, began performing the ghost dance, prompting other Lakota people to join. The American soldiers were terrified, believing this was a prelude to war. Colonel Forsyth ordered a second weapon search and found Black Coyote still had a gun. Black Coyote was deaf and did not know English. When he refused to give up his firearm, a fight broke out and a shot was fired. Both sides fired at each other, but the exchange ended in only a few minutes. Almost every Lakota person was killed or injured. The United States had 64 casualties, but most of those injuries and deaths were caused by American-owned firearms and cannons. The Lakota people were buried in a mass unmarked grave, and the event's details have been shrouded in speculation since then. Some of this confusion began immediately after the event. The soldiers had one version of the story, and Philip Wells, Colonel Forsyth's translator, had a very different interpretation. Philip Wells was part Sioux, but brought up as a white man. Some historians believe Wells's upbringing prejudiced him against the Lakota people, and he purposely caused misunderstanding between the groups and escalated the tension. According to his account, Wells overheard the Lakota men discussing plans to attack the soldiers. The Americans had already completed the first weapon search and had separated the Lakota women and children from the men. His story discusses Yellowbird's ghost dance. After this point, though, it dramatically differs from other versions. According to Wells, after the ghost dance, some Lakota men began firing at the United States soldiers, who returned fire. In the confusion, the Lakota men shot the women and children, leading to many Lakota fatalities. Although Wells's narrative is well known, modern historians have several problems with it. It is unrealistic that the Lakota men would have talked about a plan to attack the American soldiers with a known translator on site. Also, in past encounters, Sioux men, including the Lakota men, did not take risks when their women and children were in danger. Historians generally discount Wells's story today. Thankfully, there are other accounts, and one of the most apparently accurate ones comes from Private Hugh McGinnis, a member of the 1st Battalion in the 7th Cavalry. He participated in the Wounded Knee Massacre, but was angry about how it turned out because he was severely wounded by one of the American cannons. However, McGinnis did not share his story publicly until after his death, refusing to even write it down until a few months before he died. His account was published in January 1966 in the Real West magazine. It provided the evidence many Native American activists needed to prove the Wounded Knee Massacre had not been a battle, unlike what the American military had claimed for years. According to Private McGinnis, the troops set up the American cannons around the Lakota camp when they arrived on December 28th. Colonel Forsyth then ordered the Lakota men to surrender their hunting firearms. When the men protested they couldn't eat without them, Forsyth ordered a search, and the soldiers separated the men from the women and children. About 20 United States soldiers, including McGinnis, were guarding the women when a shot rang out. Immediately after that first shot, the American soldiers opened fire on the women and children without heed of their fellow soldiers standing in the way, which is how McGinnis was injured. The first attack was purposefully aimed at the women and children. The Lakota men came under fire after that, who tried to protect themselves with clubs and other weapons they had left. Many historians view McGinnis's story as more accurate than Wells's. It confirms the 7th Cavalry purposefully attacked its own men, despite the military denying it for years. His account also closely aligns with the reports given by the few Lakota survivors. There were about 50 people who survived this massacre, and they passed on their stories to their grandchildren. One survivor, Alice Ghosthorse, talked about what Yellowbird said during his ghost dance. He prayed he would die instead of his people. Modern historians now believe Philip Wells had a hand in the massacre, although whether he was a poor translator or intentionally malicious is unclear. Either way, Wells mistranslated Yellowbird's prayers during the ghost dance, directly leading to the Wounded Knee Massacre that killed about 300 Lakota people and did not spare the United States soldiers caught in the line of fire caused by centuries of hatred. What were the outcomes of the Wounded Knee Massacre? Perhaps the most tragic part of the Wounded Knee Massacre was the United States government's complete disregard for the horror of the massacre and its attempts to cover it up as a battle or an accident. Major General Nelson Appleton Miles was one of the only people who expressed concern. Although Miles had previously been promoted for his bravery in both the Civil War and the American Indian Wars, He is remembered today for speaking out about the massacre, fighting for the survivors to receive compensation for what happened. Miles still believed the Native Americans should be under the authority of the U.S. government, but he believed it should be done as peacefully as possible, not by attacking civilians. Miles was shocked when he first heard about the massacre and demanded an official investigation. He also relieved Colonel Forsyth of his position. Unfortunately, many people at the time interpreted this as Miles looking for a scapegoat. Forsyth even claimed Miles had given him orders to kill the Lakota people if they turned hostile, but this claim was later proved to be a lie. Miles had actually ordered Forsyth not to enter the camp. Many of Forsyth's men supported him, though. Miles could not confirm the facts of the massacre in the military tribunal, especially because many of the people investigating the matter did not believe the investigation was necessary. It appeared Miles' efforts had been wasted. 20 soldiers received medals of honor for their bravery during the Wounded Knee Massacre, and the government covered the event up, disregarding the truth in an attempt to hold their political power. The United States finally expressed its regret for the event in 1990. The tragedy of the Wounded Knee Massacre still resounds today, reminding us of the dangers of labeling others as enemies and refusing to extend fundamental human rights to those different from us. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about the Wounded Knee Massacre, check out our book, The Wounded Knee Massacre, a captivating guide to the Battle of Wounded Knee and its impact on the Native Americans after the final clash between federal troops and the Sioux. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.